Today is August 1st, 2024. My name is Joseph Karb, and I'm with Colin Thackery in Cambridge, England at the World Congress of Teachers of the Korean War. Colin, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So I have a few questions for you on your background. First of all, could you provide your first and last name, your birthday, and your place of birth?
My name's Colin Thackery. My date of birth is the 9th of March 1930, and I was born in North London.
And tell us about your family.
Well, there's not much to tell really, because I didn't have a very good childhood. My father was originally in the army. Then he came out and worked when he came out of the army, he worked, but it wasn't I had 5 siblings, whom one died when he was only about 5. But it was a come and go marriage. I spent a lot of my time backwards and forwards with my grandparents and my father's sister, my aunt. And in 1945-46 came the time of the break, and my siblings were taken into care, and I joined the army at 15.
So what was your schooling experience up until you joined the Army?
Not a lot. I was in and out of school. A lot of kids lost schooling, that sort of thing. I lost it, I suppose, a bit more than the others, because I was completely undisciplined. Quite honestly, I would have ended up being in terrible trouble, except that I was caught doing something naughty by a police officer, police inspector, who said to me, "What are you going to do with your life?" I said, "Well, I really want to join the army." He said, "Well, join the army then." He said, "Otherwise you're going to find yourself in Borstal." Borstal, of course, is the Borstal institution. At that time was the young offenders place. So I was in a bad way. And I joined the army, and 4th of January 1946, which sort of started my army career.
So was it a choice of either going to the institution or joining the army?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was it like joining the army at 15?
Oh, very hard work at first. I cried my eyes out, of course, the first time I walked in through those big gates in Woolwich, which was the army, the military, it was the artillery depot in London, but I quickly knuckled down, and I joined a troop, which was a troop of 30 boys, and half of them came from Borstal. So I'd already been in trouble, so it was interesting. So a lot of fights, a lot of bits of getting into trouble, that sort of thing, as kids do, I suppose. But I suddenly knuckled down to the discipline, and my father had been a drummer and a drum major in the pipe band. So I could play a drum, and I quickly learned to play a cavalry trumpet. So I became quite skilled at that. So at that particular time, there was a lot of ceremony going on, because it was the end of the war, and we found ourselves, for example, going down to a military cemetery in Surrey, which I was singing at recently. And we used to go down there when they brought bodies home to be buried, and we used to go down with cavalry trumpets to play fanfares and that sort of thing. It's a good job.
So had you ever heard of Korea when you were a young man?
No, not at all. In fact, I was, that particular time, having come back from Malaya in 1949, I was posted to the northeast of England, where I met my future wife. And they said one particular time, we're all going down to Colchester, which is in Essex, to the barracks down there to prepare to go to war, and we're going to Korea. And everybody said, "Where the hell is Korea?" my life before. And anyway, we embarked on a troop ship, and 6 weeks later we landed at Busan, or Busan as we called those days.
And you were in the artillery,
Yes,
Royal
it was,
Artillery?
yes.
Yeah. And when did you arrive in Korea? Do you remember the date or the year?
I remember, well, it's November. I don't remember
November.
the actual date. What I remember about it was being welcomed on by an American Army band, playing St. Louis blues, which I loved.
And what was Busan like when you arrived?
Well, I didn't see much of it because we got off the boat and immediately got onto a train, and the train kept on stopping and starting, and we finally ended up country at a place called Suwon. But we don't have any guns with us because our guns and vehicles were coming behind on another ship. So we ended up there as infantrymen.
With no guns?
Oh no, we had rifles.
Artillery guns.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. We didn't have artillery guns. No. So we ended up there. And after a while, we found ourselves going out onto the hills to try and find these infiltrators that were coming in from the north, usually wearing women's clothes because of the long dresses with the guns concealed underneath and coming behind women and children, which we thought was absolutely appalling. And we were chasing them, trying to kill these guys.
It must have been hard to differentiate civilians from infiltrators.
It was, yes, that was the biggest problem. And I don't know how we sort of knew, you know. I mean, there's not many women have Adam's apples. So the chap, a woman going along with it, and all of a sudden he said, he's a bloke, you know, he's a man. So he was singled out.
Do you remember when you first heard that the Korean War had started? Was it big news at your base or in the newspapers?
No, not at all. I must confess that that was why I was so surprised when they said you were going to Korea, because we knew nothing about it. You know, there was nothing written at the time, as I understand it.
So could you tell me more about your specialty in the artillery? What was your job?
I was what they call. I was a technical assistant. You did all the working out of the information that goes on the guns. But my personal job, I was up with the infantry, working alongside the captain, and I was his assistant. And when we went into action with the infantry, so we were the forward observers. For example, I carried on my back a radio set, and I was attached by an umbilical cord to the signaller who was behind. He was carrying batteries, so that's how we went into action.
So what were the living conditions like? What about the food?
Well, we were on what they call hardtack. We were on tin rations, canned stuff, and it was great. It was okay. You existed, you know. It got a bit boring after a while, but everything came out of a tin.
And what about sleeping? Were you sleeping in a tent?
Well, when you could.
Yeah.
If we were down the battery lines, we slept in a tent. Otherwise, we slept over wherever we could.
Did you feel like you had sufficient supplies in uniforms?
In what?
Sufficient supplies. Did you have enough in terms
Oh yeah,
of supplies
I think
and food?
yes, I think we did quite well, really. And anything we didn't want, we used to. You've heard the British word scrounge.
Yeah.
We used to scrounge, and we scrounged off of our American allies.
Where were you stationed? What were some of the locations you were stationed in?
Well, Suwon was the first one I came from. The other one, it was all sorts of places. I don't know the names of the places, except when I saw the map this morning, I realised, oh yes, I was there and there. Kaesong, Incheon, and we fought our way right up to the Chinese border, and Pyongyang, of course, we were right. There was a river that quite close there, and with a chap talked about one of the times when we were told to hold the line. Our guns were down the what they called the MSR, which is the main supply route, and they were up firing over each other's head. They were ready to fire, and we were up with the infantry, and we sat on this river. We were protecting the infantry, and the infantry was protecting the engineers who were going to blow the bridge. But nothing happened. For days we sat there with absolutely nothing going on until we were told to withdraw, and we did.
Did you exchange letters with your family and friends when you were?
Oh yes, because
Korea?
the British Army have the Royal Engineers. They run the postal service, and yes, they were not frequent, they weren't as often as we like, because the mail run was very important. And as soon as you heard your name called by a guy to collect the mail, that was most important. And it was most important at the time, because I had, just before we went out there, I had married, and only 2 weeks before we went to Korea.
Wow.
So I was most anxious to receive letters from my new wife.
What was your relationship like with foreign troops, with the other UN participating countries?
Fine, you know. We were surprised to know, I must admit, and not one thing I like to talk about, but I feel that we were surprised that the American army was so segregated, which really surprised us at the time, because we weren't. But we got on well fine with everybody. In fact, one of the units that I found myself because when we come down off the OP, the observation post, we would come down and have 3 days rest before we went back up again. And we used to go to an American unit usually to liaise, because the difference in fire orders. And we found ourselves with the Triple Nickel Field Artillery Battalion, and they were all black. And these guys were great. We made so many good friends. But of course, you know, naturally, then as soon as we were joined by the Australians, New Zealanders, Canadians, Indians, we were brothers in arms, really.
Right. So what were some of the more difficult or dangerous memories or experiences you had in Korea?
Well, apart from, you know, being shot at and keeping your head down, which was the first experience, was the cold, the immense cold. And as soon as you went up, my first big battle there that I experienced personally was Hillcourt 327, which of course was the spot height on top of the hill. And when we got up there, it was so dreadfully cold because of the wind. Brought the wind chill factor brought the temperature down even further. I think, as far as they tell me at the time, it was down to -40, thereabouts. So it was very cold. And in fact, I got frostbite in both of my legs at one stage of the game.
Did you have to seek medical attention for the frostbite?
Yes. At the time I didn't. Subsequently I had to, because my legs started to give me problems. They still do, in fact.
I imagine frostbite was common. Was it a common issue in these conditions?
What?
Frostbite, a common issue?
Common?
Yeah.
Yes, certainly more among the infantry than us. You know, there were guys losing toes and arms and digits and that sort of thing. Yeah, that was quite common.
And what was the most severe, biggest battle that you were engaged in?
Well, I think the biggest one I experienced was the Emgym. But I just got back to my unit when it started, and my captain said, go back for batteries for the sets, because we couldn't charge the batteries up on the mountains. So I went back to the battery lines in a jeep, and got some fresh batteries. I was coming up, and I was stopped by the military police, who said, "You can't go that there. They're surrounded."
Wow.
And had I gone there, I'd have gone in the back, because the rest of my captain was captured, and Paddy Drum and the other guys in the party. It was only 4 of us in the party. They would take their gun in the bag. I missed it by 10 minutes. I don't know.
So if you weren't sent for batteries, that would have been you.
Yes,
Right?
I'd have been a prisoner of war. Yes.
Were you wounded at all? I know you had frostbite.
I had frostbite,
Yeah.
and I lost my hearing. That was another story. Do you like to
Yeah,
tell?
please.
Well, it was 327, my big battle, and at night, of course, sound carries so much, and we were taken into this particular. We hadn't the foggiest idea where we were, but my captain said to me, and to the drum and the signal, "Wait here, and be very quiet." So we were. We standing and a crafty cigarette, you know, that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, this blast occurred, knocked both of us off our feet. I said, "My God, we've got it. We've been shelled." That sort of thing. We turned out we weren't. We didn't know we were under the muzzle of a Centurion 20-pounder gun. We started the bombardment, and it started at that moment, and that was where we should have been there, but we hadn't the foggiest idea, and that was dreadful. And it was ages before I got I've never got my hearing back at all. I have 2 hearing aids now. It didn't help, of course, because I stayed in the artillery for another 20 years.
Did you retire from the military?
Eventually, after 25
After
years.
25
yes.
years.
Yeah.
And did you experience or have contact with any Chinese troops in Korea?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
One particular incident comes to mind was when we came across a Chinese prisoner. We'd been taken prisoner by the Korean army. We were supporting the Republic of Korean Army, and this guy, there was a kerfuffle up the top, and the captain sent me forward. He said, "Go and find out what happened." And I said to this Korean officer, "I will take him." And he had a bullet in his knee, and he couldn't do anything. Anyway, I give him a human stretcher back, back to our jeep, which was following up behind. And he said in perfect English, he said, "Thank you so much." And we were amazed. He was a student of Peking University, and he'd been, you in the army. Yeah, and he was because he said, "Oh, thank heavens, I'm being captured by the British." He said, "I'll now get medical attention," and because the military police came and collected him, took him back to a field hospital. I was saying to somebody at lunchtime, I wish I knew what happened to him, because he spoke perfect English. I suppose he must have ended up a professor or something, but he, of course, would be a mine of information.
Yeah, I wonder. What were some of the rewarding memories from your experiences?
Rewarding?
Rewarding.
I think closer bonding with the guys I was at war with. War's a funny thing. It's dreadful. It's awful. And you hope that hope it never happens to my son and my grandchildren, especially my grandson, or anybody member of my family. But it does bond people. And among guys that I meet, you say, where were you? Where were you there? And extraordinary things happen. Some years later, I was with my wife at a Turkish seaside resort, and the owner of this little hotel on the beach said he wanted to talk to me. Talk to me, but he needed interpretation. He didn't speak a word of English. he was saying to my wife, sitting on the beach, was that he talked about, he said something like Korea or something, Korea. Eventually he was talking about Korea, and he said, had I been in Korea? And I said, yes, I had. He said, so have I. I was there. And he's part of the Turkish battalion they were talking about this morning. This famous battalion out there at the time that was surrounded. And our brigadier had said, we'll send somebody in to relieve you. And the Turkish said, no, don't do that. When we run out of ammunition, we fix bayonets and we charge. And they did.
Wow.
Yeah. So he and I talked about this. And through his good friend was a chemist in town, and he came up and interpreted for us. So and I know I knew this chap, and then wouldn't know him, madam. I suppose I wouldn't even know him now, actually. But from that little time, that evening, we had a great bonding because we'd both been at the same war at the same time.
It's amazing. Do you have any other stories from the Korean War you would like to share?
I suppose, yeah. We have a funny sense of humour, the British Army. And I remember one particular time, the Chinese were very good at digging trenches, my word. They tunnelled like rabbits. And we'd taken this particular hill, and it was my turn to get into the trench and relieve the officer. He went to get some sleep, and I put the headsets on, sat down there, and I was sort of half dozing. And at first light, the British Army have a thing called stand to. First light and last light, and you literally stand to, waiting for the enemy to arrive. It's about the time when a counterattack might take place. So I'm just sort of getting myself ready to stand to, and I couldn't put my head over the top because I'd already taken off. When one of our guys crept up, and he said, "Are you awake?" I said, "Yes," and he gave me a cup of tea. And I said, "Thank you very much." He said, "Who's your friend?" I said, "What friend?" He said, "Turn round." So I looked round like that, and there was a dead Chinese soldier, frozen stiff. I had my back up against his the rest of the night. Don't move, he said, you know. I found it quite funny afterwards. Not with this poor chap. I had the foggiest idea who he was. But those sort of things happen. And it's that kind of, that funny, awful sense of humour. The Ulster Rifles and the Irish unit were really badly cut up. I've forgotten the name of the area. They called that Compo Canyon. Now, Compo was the food we eat. It's called Compo rations. It's called Compo Canyon. But a lot of guys lost their lives there and were taken prisoner. Yeah. That's a sort of funny sort of sense of humour that comes about in wartime.
Now, you were 20 years old in Korea, is that correct?
Yes, I
when
was,
you were
yes.
first sent? So you've been back to Korea.
Yes.
And how would you describe what you saw before and what you saw recently on your return trip?
That was extraordinary. We landed and got off the plane to a big reception there. It was a what they call them? Revisit program. And this was I was out there because it was last July, and it was the 70th anniversary of the signing of the armistice. And I was in the British Party out there. And we got on this coach, and the last time I'd seen Seoul, it was flat, complete wasteland. We drove into Seoul. I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, "My God, look what they've done in these years." I know it'll be 70 years, but they must have worked hard to get here. Beautiful high-rise buildings, and put they put us up in a superb hotel in the middle of Seoul, and they feted us, actually. They couldn't do it. The Koreans are so generous. And we had a wonderful 5 days there.
And what was Seoul like in the 1950s?
When
What was Seoul like in the 1950s?
we were there,
Yeah, when you were there.
well, there's a lot to see, actually. In fact, I was quite good with the trumpet, cavalry trumpet. And at one stage there, when Seoul had been retaken and the army had gone further north, they were going to reopen the British legation, they called it at the time, and they wanted a Guard of Honour. So the Guard of Honour was survived by my regiment. So we got ourselves, cleaned up our gear a bit, and there was a picture of me. I've got it somewhere in my archives, playing the trumpet, sounding a welcome call when they reopened the embassy. And we went back to the embassy last year as well. It was quite fun.
Amazing. And what year did you return to Britain?
To Britain,
Yeah, when did you return?
54. Yeah, because instead of coming home, we didn't come straight home after we left Korea. We went to Hong Kong, and I was another 2 years in Hong Kong.
Oh, wow. And what was it like when you got back to Britain? What was the reaction to you fighting in the Korean War?
Well, the only people who knew about it were my immediate relatives, because people were saying, and they still do. If you talk to people other than military people, they say, "Where's that? Was there a war there?" Because it's still, I think, it's a bit of a sore thing with people of my age, that people still think it's forgotten.
And that's what we're trying to change.
Yes. Yeah.
So are you aware of Korea's democratization and the democracy movement they had in the 80s and 90s?
Well, I wasn't at the time. I've certainly been made aware of it since, through organisations like your own. And of course my revisit last year was a real eye-opener. I joined the British Korean Veterans Association and marched at Whitehall and that sort of thing in November. But I'd never had a lot to do again with the Koreans until recent years. And I've been amazed and delighted to renew my friendship, if you like.
So what do you think the legacy of the Korean War is? How would you describe the legacy of the sacrifice of all of the veterans? What's the legacy?
Well, it never occurred to us until we went back last year when somebody said to us, if you hadn't been here, South Korea would be like North Korea is now. And that single fact, completely, I found it astonishing because I hadn't thought about it like that. And a visit to Panmunjom and looking across the line to the people looking at us through binoculars, you could see where they were, behind curtains in this building the other side. It's brought so many things back. And of course the other thing that brought the whole thing back was going to the cemeteries and seeing names of people that I'd served with.
So the Korean War Legacy Foundation is holding this conference.
Yes.
And what are your thoughts on the work we're doing?
What about?
What do you think of what we're doing?
Well, I'm amazed. I mean, this morning's been a great eye-opener. I had no idea that such an organisation existed until I was invited to this weekend. I think it's extraordinary. And I suppose talking to people too, talking to teachers this morning at coffee, a young lady and two gentlemen at lunch, they were firing questions. It's quite clear that there's a lot of interest. I mean, a lot of these people, funny enough, the two people I spoke to today were history teachers. So they had a great interest in history and passing it on to young people. And I thought it was such a good idea because it's going back to Korea that one realises children delivering us little notes to saying you are heroes and that sort of thing. It was so charming to little kids, and yeah, it was good. It was great. I've had my eyes open so much at my great age. I'm 94 now, and I've had my eyes opened over this last year, really. Yeah, reopened, if you like.
Yeah. Now, of course, you're very well known for winning the 2019 Britain's Got Talent competition.
Yes, I did.
So, how did you apply for that, and tell us more about that experience?
Well, at the Royal Hospital, the people who wear this uniform, I had said to somebody at some time or another, probably over a drink, that he said to me about singing, because I love to sing. I'd been singing since I was a youngster, a choir boy. He said, do you like to sing? I said, I love it. I said, do you know, I said, the thing that worries me as I get older is that if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So he said to me, well, use it then. I said, what do you mean? He said, they're advertising for this show, Britain's Got Talent. So I said, oh, don't be so silly. You think, are you serious? No, I couldn't possibly do that. What do they want an old man like me for? He said, go on. He said, I dare you. That was the trigger point. I said, okay, well, I'll have a go. So I went back to my berth, downloaded the form on my laptop, and applied for well, the rest is history. I was absolutely amazed, A, that I was accepted, and B, that as I travelled through this process, I was incredible. I've got this far. People like what I did, and still do, because I'm still singing.
What was your first experience like auditioning in front of the cameras?
Oh, yes, well, I thought. I went to this place on the River Thames called the Excel Centre. They said, please come dressed as you would on the stage. So this is the only thing I can put on that's formal. So I appeared at the Excel Centre with my daughter and one of my granddaughters. And there were thousands of people there. I said, well, I might as well turn around and go home. But they don't want me. So my daughter said, well, you've got to come, Daddy. You've got to do it. You signed the form. So I said, okay. So I went in there and got through to informal interviews. And I'd sing a song to this lady first, and twice to this chap, and who was filming me. And so they said, thanks, sort of, we'll let you know, that kind of thing. But there was so many people there, people dressed in funny costumes, lots of very beautiful girls with obviously dancers with legs as far as you can see. And yes, and it was an experience. Next thing I knew is that I got this email through to say, you've been chosen for the filmed audition. Now, this was at a very famous theatre in London called the Palladium, and so I appeared at the Palladium, and in front of what they call the Fabulous Four. They're still doing it. Simon Cowell,
right.
Very well-known Simon Cowell, and his gang, and I appeared on stage, and I think that was amazing. The place was full. I knew that one line was full of my relatives,
Right.
my daughter and my granddaughters, my son, all sorts of people. And so I did this audition, sang this song, which I've sang dozens of times since, because it's always asked for. It's called The Wind Beneath My Wings, which I devoted to my late wife. And I got a big, in fact, I was amazed, standing ovation, and 4 yeses from the judges.
Amazing.
So I thought, well, okay, I'll see what happens now. Lo and behold, it brought forward for the semi-finals. I thought, wow, what extraordinary. This time the theatre again, full up with people. Because you can apply for free tickets if you want. This kind of show. And they said, what are you going to sing this time? Well, Simon Cowell had said, I want him to sing We'll Meet Again. I said, oh gosh, We'll Meet Again. I've sang this blooming song so many times, I could always sing it backward. Nevertheless, my son said to me at the time, I remember him saying to me, Simon Cowell has been right for a long time. If it says it, do it. So I did. Again, standing ovation, 4 yeses. What I didn't realise was the next week was one of the, I can't remember, it was a celebration of the end of war or something like that. And so that was well received. And I went on to the final. Again, the same theatre. This time to sing a song called Love Changes Everything, which is my lady partner's very favourite song. And again, another song I'm frequently asked to sing. And so that was it. And I stood there with Anton Deck. You know Anton Deck, you've heard of these guys, with each of the two presenters. I stood there with them and with a big build-up, and you think, well, there was this guy standing next to me who was a very, very good magician. I mean, he was extraordinary. You really thought it was magic. And you never saw his face because he always wore this mask. And that's the first time I'd ever seen him without his mask on. And I thought, well, he's got it. Yeah. And then at the time, I thought, well, it was not me. It was. And my name was announced. And that place went wild.
That's amazing.
I know it was amazing. I've actually watched it on TV a couple of times. You could get it back on.
I watched it, yeah.
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 And my face, the picture, because I thought, me? What? Oh God, I've done it. Yeah, it was very good. You know, the extraordinary thing is, my second granddaughter, Alice, she had said to me some months before, Granddad, you're going to win. I said, no, well, I'm not really. She said, you are. I said, you're so popular. She said, and the money will be good. I said, money? What money? She said, there's a cash prize. I said, oh. And she said, I think it's about £50,000. I said, my gosh. I said, that'll be nicely for Christmas.
That's great.
It was 250,000.
Now, you mentioned that you dedicated your first song to your wife. Tell us about your wife.
Well, I met Joan when I was after I came back from Malaya, I posted up to the northeast of England. And I met her at a camp dance. I was a very keen dancer, keen ballroom dancer, what I call proper dancing. And I met her there, and our romance blossomed after a sort of a bit of a dicky start, because I'd said to her, can I have the first tango, please? And she'd been observing me, and a bit of a lad, and she said, how many other girls have you asked? And walked off the floor. So I thought, oh dear me, yeah. I had that, but I still had my eyes on this little pretty brunette. And the next week at the camp dance, always on Thursdays, and there it was. That was it. We married in 2 weeks before I shipped to Korea. She followed me out when we was posted to Hong Kong. She came out to Hong Kong on a troop ship. Everybody travelled by troop ships. There's no planes in those days. Well, nothing for us. And so she joined me in Hong Kong. We spent another 2 years there, where my daughter was born. My daughter was born at the British Military Hospital there. So that started our 66 years of married life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you have children and grandchildren?
Yes. My children, military kids are always called brats. And do you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the US too.
My daughter and my son would happily say they're brats. Even though I've been out of the army a long time. I have two, a son as well, was born in UK, and I have 4 grandchildren, 3 girls and a boy.
Wonderful.
And I must say, for the record, that in January I shall become a great granddad.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So how did winning Britain's Got Talent impact your life?
Turned it upside down. Life has never been, who would have ever thought at my age that life would become so different to what it was. In the first 6 months, I did 132 different things. Some of them were in interviews, like sometimes 2 or 3 interviews in a day with newspapers and TV and all that stuff, and of course singing. Um, and I was very glad when Christmas came along, because I was a bit tired then. But it's gone on. It's gone on, and in fact, after this weekend, I shall be singing here tomorrow, and after that, we're going straight off on Sunday up to a place called Mablethorpe in Lincolnshire, where I shall be singing a thing called Poppies on the Pond. So it doesn't stop. You know, it's not. It's nice now. It's sort of evened out a bit. But I still, we do things all the time, some rather interesting, exciting things, including going to the Buckingham Palace, not to sing, but because of my Korean connections. Because it turns out that the president of Korea is a bit of a fan, and so is the first lady, and we were invited to the palace when he came to last year. What year was it?
Last year. Last November.
November, yeah. And he came on a state visit.
Amazing. So, I notice you have a couple of medals. Would you talk about those?
These ones. I'm very proud. I can't officially wear them with uniform because they're not approved by the Crown. But this was the first one I got, about 20 or over 20 years ago. And I think it's a beautiful medal, actually. It's very pretty, very nice. It says public career on there, and it's called the Peace Medal. And this one we got only last year, which is another lovely medal. And on the back of it, it's got Ambassador for Peace, and presented with these at the reunion last year. It was very nice. And I wear them with pride at a Korean function, as it were. So I suppose I'm not officially allowed to wear them with uniform, but I thought for the interview itself, it's rather appropriate that I do.
I agree. So you've had an amazing life. What advice do you have for young people today?
Young people?
Yeah.
What advice would I give? More advice I give to my grandchildren if they ask for it is to enjoy life. To older people, they say, how do I keep going when I'm old? My advice is to sing. So I think singing is good for you, and it keeps me going. To young people, I always say to them, well, study what we've done. Study war. Study the wars that have happened since the Great War, World War II, like Korea, like Afghanistan, like those sort of things, and the sort of things happening in Ukraine at the moment. Try and stop it. War's an awful, filthy business. So please do your best to avoid it. Avoid it if happening, really.
That's wonderful advice. Now, Colin, did I miss anything? Is there anything else you wanted to share about your experiences in the war?
No, not really. I'm eternally grateful to the Korean people. I find them extraordinary. There's a delegation comes from the embassy in London to the Royal Hospital every year, and they come and visit just to talk and that sort of thing, take a few photographs. always have some, they never come empty-handed, always extraordinary.
Very generous.
No, she's pointing to my shoes.
Oh.
I don't know, I hope the cameras pick these up.
Yeah. Tell us about your shoes.
Before we went to Korea last year, they said, we want to measure you for new shoes. So I said, oh, very nice. What do you want? I thought, oh, I'll wear a pair I can wear with my uniform. And these are my Korean shoes, and they're beautiful.
Oh.
Very comfortable. And I'm waiting, in fact. I understand that this weekend I should get my jacket, because a load of guys got jackets last year, light jackets, and it may be that Minister Kang's going to come with one for me.
So Colin, thank you so much for taking time to be interviewed today, and thanks so much for attending the World Congress of Teachers in Cambridge, United Kingdom. And of course, thank you for your service. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much indeed. Pleasure.